I wasn't supposed to be home yet. My meeting downtown got canceled last minute, something about the regional director's flight being delayed, a fire alarm in the building, who knows. I didn't ask for details. I just packed up my laptop, texted my assistant that I'd handle things from home, and walked out into the kind of golden afternoon that tricks you into believing the world is soft. Harmless. I stopped by the sandwich place near my office, Marcy's favorite spot, the one with the lemon rosemary aioli she always says tastes like sundaes. I grabbed 2 wraps and a bottle of that sparkling peach water she likes but never buys for herself. Figured I'd surprise her. Maybe we'd eat out on the deck, play some music, talk like we used to before life got so scheduled. Before we got so efficient. But then I turned into our neighborhood. And everything that was supposed to be harmless suddenly wasn't. The red car was the first thing that felt wrong. I noticed it as I rounded the bend onto our street. Parked a little too close to our garage, front tires tilted awkwardly on the curb like whoever was driving didn't care much about staying long or parking properly. At first, I thought it might be a delivery driver or maybe one of the neighbor's kids with a new ride. But something about it, something in my gut, told me to slow down. To really look. I pulled up behind the car, still idling. I could see them clearly through the side window. Marcy was in the passenger seat. Her hair was down. She only wore it like that when she wanted to look a certain way, deliberate, soft, like a version of herself she didn't bring out for errands or grocery runs. She was leaning in toward the driver, close. Laughing. I couldn't hear it, obviously, but her mouth was wide open, her head tilted back just a little like she did when she felt safe. At ease. And then she kissed him. Not a friendly goodbye kiss. Not something 2 people who share a lunch tab and nothing else would do. No. This was slower. Their heads lingered together for a second afterward. Her hand touched his cheek like she was smoothing something invisible. I sat there in my car, frozen. The bag of sandwiches on the seat beside me suddenly felt ridiculous. Too heavy. Too hopeful. I should have done something, opened the door, yelled, demanded answers. But I didn't. I stayed right where I was, watching through the windshield like I'd stumbled onto a private scene in a movie I hadn't meant to watch. It didn't feel real. My brain kept trying to rewrite it to make it something else. Maybe it wasn't her. Maybe that wasn't a kiss. Maybe I was imagining the whole thing. Anything to give myself an off-ramp from what I'd just seen. She stepped out of the car without looking back, adjusting her shirt, fluffing her hair. The driver, a guy with dark hair, couldn't have been older than his early 30s, didn't even wait for her to go inside. He backed out with the same casual speed of someone who had been here before. Who wasn't worried about being caught. I let him drive off before I pulled into the driveway. When I walked inside, she was already in the kitchen. She didn't flinch. She didn't look startled or panicked. She was just standing there, back turned, fiddling with the coffee pot. Her hair looked damp, like she just stepped out of the shower. She was wearing that oversized cream sweater she always used to steal from me and call hers. She turned around when she heard the door shut. Oh. Hey, babe. You're early, she said, all smiles. Just like that. I forced a smile. Meeting got canceled. She poured herself a mug of coffee even though I knew she wouldn't drink it. She rarely did this late in the day. Said it messed with her sleep. Still, she brought the mug to her lips, let it hover there like she was thinking about taking a sip. Then she set it down. I was just out, she said casually, like she was talking about picking up milk. Met up with Jenna for a bit. She had some things she wanted to vent about. You know how she gets. I nodded slowly. Who dropped you off? She tilted her head like the question surprised her. Her boyfriend. Well, her kind of boyfriend. You haven't met him, Tyler. He offered to swing by since it was on the way. Tyler. The name didn't mean anything to me. Neither did Jenna's kind of boyfriend. I just stared at her for a second longer than was comfortable. She didn't blink. You okay? She asked, smiling faintly. You look tense. I wanted to ask her 1,000 questions. Why was she in his car? Why the kiss? Who is he really? But none of it came out. Instead, I handed her the sandwich bag. Thought I'd bring dinner, I said. Didn't expect you to already be home. Her face lit up. Or maybe it was just performance. At that point, I couldn't tell. You're the best, she said, taking the bag and peeking inside. Is this the aioli one? Yeah. She laughed softly. God, you know me too well. I sat across from her at the kitchen island while she unwrapped the sandwich. She took a bite, chewed slowly, talked about her day like nothing was out of the ordinary. I listened. I nodded. I even smiled in the right places. Because I was afraid. Not of her, but of what it would mean to acknowledge what I saw. To say it out loud. If I did, the thread would unravel. And once it did, there'd be no going back. I told myself maybe I misunderstood the kiss. Maybe it was just an angle thing. A shadow. Something innocent that looked wrong from where I sat. My brain wanted to make peace with it, to patch the crack before it grew. But I couldn't unsee it. That night, after she fell asleep beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. The room was dark and quiet except for the slow rhythm of her breathing. My hand was inches from hers on the sheets, but I didn't reach for it. Instead, I closed my eyes and tried to remember the last time I'd really looked at her and not just assumed everything was fine. When had the routines started to cover the gaps? When did we stop being curious about each other? I used to believe that love was something steady, like a house you build together brick by brick. I never realized how easily one fracture could run through the entire foundation. And yet I said nothing. Because sometimes silence feels safer than truth. And sometimes pretending feels a lot like love. After the red car, nothing was the same. You wouldn't have known it from the outside. We still went through the motions like any other couple. We still shared meals, still asked about each other's day, still laughed at the same dumb shows we always did. But underneath, everything had shifted. Like a crack running through a windshield, not wide enough to shatter the glass, but enough to distort the view. That night haunted me more than I wanted to admit. Not just because of what I saw, but because of how quickly I chose not to see it. After that day, I started noticing things. Not the obvious stuff. Marcy wasn't stupid. She didn't come home smelling like cologne or lipstick smudges. She didn't sneak around like someone who wanted to get caught. No, it was quieter than that. Subtle. Almost elegant. It started with her phone. It used to sit face up on the kitchen counter while she cooked or played music. Now it was always face down. Then one day it just stopped being around altogether. She kept it in her pocket, brought it to the bathroom, slept with it under her pillow. I joked once about how attached she was to it. Trying to join a support group, she said, smiling. Digital detox. Baby steps. I laughed, but something in my chest tightened. That laugh wasn't real. Then came the missed calls. Sorry, I forgot to plug in my phone. The meeting ran late. Jenna needed to talk. Always someone else, always a good reason. But the timing was too precise. Calls I would have expected from her at lunch or on her drive home just didn't come. And when I texted, responses felt delayed. Measured. Like they were being reviewed before being sent. One night, I walked past the bathroom and noticed the light was still on. I figured she'd been in there brushing her teeth or scrolling. But when I knocked, there was a pause. I'll be out in a sec, she called. I waited. 5 minutes. Then 10. When she finally came out, she was holding her phone and wiping at her eyes. Allergies, she said. These eye drops sting like hell. I didn't press her. I just nodded. But something inside me started shifting. The kind of shift that's not panic yet. It's preparation. Like your brain knows the truth before your heart will let it in. Then came the night I asked her about a text I happened to see 2:03 a.m. lighting up her screen with a name I didn't recognize. A guy. Nothing overt, just a first name. Nate? That's all it said. Who's Nate? I asked, already bracing. Her reaction was immediate. She sat up in bed like I'd slapped her. Why are you checking my phone? I didn't check it. The screen lit up. I glanced. You glanced, she repeated, her voice sharp. Jesus, Mark? Since when are you the jealous type? I'm not, I said. I just asked a question. And I'm just saying it's none of your business who texts me in the middle of the night? That one stung. Not even what she said, just the way she said it. Like the question itself was an insult. Like I was the one crossing the line. I let it drop, but something inside me curled inward like a corner of a page being dog-eared. Not to be forgotten. Just marked for later. That's when I started taking notes. Not to catch her. Not for some grand confrontation. Honestly, I wasn't even sure what I was doing. It felt more like a survival mechanism, like I needed something concrete to hold onto before the gaslighting became complete. I wrote them in a notes app on my phone. Password protected. Dates. Times. Observations. I kept it clinical. Detached. Almost like I was journaling for someone else. Phone buzzed at 1:47 a.m. Didn't respond. Looked nervous. Claimed she was with Jenna. Jenna was posting IG stories from home. Smell on scarf cologne. Not mine. Spicy, not sweet. Maybe sandalwood. Sometimes I would reread the entries late at night when I couldn't sleep, as if I needed permission to trust my own instincts. Every entry felt like a breadcrumb. Not proof. Not yet. But a trail. At work, I found myself distracted, checking her location when I knew she was running errands. She used to send pictures when she went shopping. Now there were no updates unless I asked. When I did, she got short. Why do you care so much? You never used to check up on me like this. She was right. I hadn't. but now every silence felt like a scream. There was one night, I still remember the way the wind sounded against the window, that she came home late from a networking happy hour. Her eyes were glassy, her voice too high-pitched, like someone holding in a secret. "You ever think about taking a weekend away?" she asked, slumping onto the couch next to me. I blinked. "You mean us?" "Sure," she said. "Or just you. You've been stressed lately." That's when I knew. She wanted me gone. Not forever. Just long enough for something to unfold without consequence. I smiled. "Yeah, maybe I'll look into that." The next day, I checked her browser history on the shared laptop. She'd cleared it. She never cleared her history. That was when I stopped pretending I was imagining things. I didn't confront her. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just added another note to the list. And slowly, I began to stop waiting for her to come home. Instead, I started coming home to myself. I wasn't supposed to be there. It was one of those strange coincidences that life hands you, not planned, not sought, just dropped in your lap like fate grinning through its teeth. My buddy Sean had invited me to his company's annual rooftop mixer, one of those networking events with overpriced drinks and people pretending not to size each other up. I almost didn't go. I'd had a long day and was ready to spend the evening in silence. But something restlessness maybe pushed me to say yes. I didn't know Marcy would be there. She never mentioned it. Not once. She claimed she had a team dinner that night, but said it casually like it was routine. Told me not to wait up. Said she'd probably be late. So I dressed in something clean, shaved the stubble I'd stopped caring about lately, and tried to show up like a normal guy. Pretend I wasn't unraveling at the seams. Sean greeted me at the entrance with a drink already in hand and a grin like he hadn't seen me in years, even though it had only been a few weeks. "Glad you came, man," he said, handing me a drink. "You look like you need this." He had no idea. The rooftop was lit with those string lights that make everything feel warmer than it is. People milled around in clumps, name tags shining under fairy lights, laughter rising in little bursts. I made small talk with a few strangers, nodded through conversations about Q1 numbers and product launches, but my mind drifted. It wasn't until I stepped toward the railing to get some air that I saw her. Marcy. She was standing maybe 20 feet away, near the far end of the deck, half turned from the crowd. The same man from the red car stood beside her. He wasn't touching her at first. They were talking closely, leaning in, his hand occasionally gesturing, hers brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She was laughing, God, that laugh, soft and secret, the one she used to reserve for me. Her eyes sparkled in a way I hadn't seen in months. Then he reached for her waist. It wasn't a grab. It was slow, familiar. And she didn't pull away. Instead, she leaned into it. Smiled up at him like he'd just told her the best joke in the world. And then they kissed. Not a fleeting peck. Not drunk and stupid. It was full, lingering, like no one else existed. I didn't react right away. Didn't storm over, didn't shout. I stepped behind one of the rooftop's support columns, out of their line of sight, and just stood there. Watching. Everything around me blurred. The music, the crowd, the breeze, it all faded. It felt like I was watching through glass, like I was in a different room entirely, seeing it happen but unable to change anything. The shock didn't come. No good punch. No burst of adrenaline. Just a quiet. A kind of calm I hadn't expected. Like some part of me already knew, and this was just the final signature at the bottom of a contract I'd been pretending not to read. They didn't notice me. Or if they did, they didn't care. She touched his chest when she pulled back, laughing again like she didn't just dismantle a decade with her hands. And I just stood there. I don't know how long I stayed, 5 minutes? 10? Maybe more. Enough time to memorize the scene. The curve of her body against his. The way she tilted her head. The way his thumb brushed her hip. It wasn't an affair anymore. It was a relationship. And I was no longer a character in it. I left without saying goodbye to Sean. Walked out of the building. Down the elevator in silence. And stepped out into the street like a man who just learned gravity had changed and no one else had noticed. My hands were trembling. But not from rage. From clarity. The city buzzed around me like normal. Cars honking. People laughing from bar patios. But I felt like I was walking through a different version of it. One where I was invisible. Unseen. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. Marcy. Dinner went long. Just heading home. Love you. I stared at the screen. The dots popped up for a second like she was typing more. Then disappeared. I didn't reply. When I got home, she was already there. In sweats. Hair up. No sign of lipstick. She looked up from the couch and smiled like nothing had happened. "Hey babe, you okay? You look tired." Tired. That was the word. I nodded, said I was going to shower, stood under the water for longer than I needed to, let it run over my face, chest, hands like it could scrub away what I'd seen. But it didn't. That night I didn't sleep. I lay next to her, staring at the ceiling, her breathing steady beside me. I wondered if she thought about him, if she felt guilty, if she even knew what guilt felt like anymore. There's a kind of cruelty in realizing that someone has moved on while you're still holding the door open. She hadn't just kissed someone else. She'd written me out of her story. No fights, no confrontations, no breakups, just erasure. Like I'd been gently folded out of her narrative. And she hadn't bothered to tell me because she didn't think I'd notice. And maybe I wouldn't have, if I hadn't gone to that rooftop, if I hadn't seen it for myself. I woke up the next morning feeling like I'd aged 5 years overnight. She was already downstairs, sipping coffee, scrolling her phone like it was just another Tuesday. I stood in the hallway, watching her through the banister, and realized something with a clarity I hadn't had before. She was gone. Whatever part of her had belonged to me, whatever tenderness, loyalty, love, that part had packed up and left a long time ago. The woman at the counter was just a well-rehearsed echo. I walked into the kitchen. She looked up. "Morning," she said. "You want coffee?" I shook my head. "No, thanks." I stood there for a second too long. She noticed. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I said. It was a lie, but not for long. I used to think that endings came quietly, like slow fades, distance, silence, a final door closing softly behind you. But sometimes endings dress up. They drink wine, they stand under chandeliers, and they smile while announcing your life's collapse like it's a promotion. It was a week after the rooftop. I hadn't said anything. Not directly. Marcy and I danced around each other in the house like furniture. Present, unmoving, ignored. I slept less, ate less, but I still pretended. Still played my part. I didn't know why. Maybe because I needed one more moment. One more piece of evidence I wouldn't be able to rationalize. Something loud enough to drown out the part of me that still hoped. Came on a Saturday. Marcy said we'd been invited to her boss's birthday party. Big deal. Formal. Networking opportunity, she said. Her words so thin you could see through them. She said I should wear that charcoal blazer she liked, the one from our anniversary in Santa Barbara. I asked if she really wanted me there. She laughed. "Of course I do. Don't be weird." I almost didn't go, but I did. The venue was one of those modern art lofts downtown, with exposed brick and string lights and a DJ spinning jazz remixes that no one danced to. Everyone was beautiful, curated, smiling, the kind of people who tell you they're in branding but can't quite explain what they do. Marcy fit right in. She looked incredible, of course. A black dress that shimmered under the lights, her hair pinned just right, her heels making that confident click on the floor that used to drive me crazy in the best way. I stood beside her with a glass of something I couldn't pronounce, watching her light up in front of her boss and coworkers like she belonged to them now. I didn't recognize this version of her. Or maybe I did and just never wanted to admit it. We made the rounds, smiles, handshakes, inside jokes I wasn't part of. She introduced me, but only as Mark. No extra words. No warmth, just the title. I might as well have been her Uber driver. Then came the toast. The music dimmed. Glasses were raised. Her boss, a tall, angular man who looked like he'd been born in a turtleneck, thanked everyone for coming, cracked a joke about turning 50, and invited anyone to say a few words. To my surprise, Marcy stepped forward. People clapped. A few whistled. I thought she might make a joke, say something about their office karaoke nights. But instead, she cleared her throat and smiled in that polished way that made my stomach clench. "I just wanted to say something personal," she began. "Something I've been meaning to share for a while." I froze. "I've been doing a lot of reflecting lately," she said. "On relationships, on change, on how we grow. And sometimes, growth means letting go of what we thought things were supposed to look like." She turned toward the crowd, but not toward me. Mark and I have decided to try something different. We're taking space. Choosing independence. It's mutual. We're still friends. Supportive. Just evolving. Laughter. Polite applause. A few raised eyebrows. I didn't move. I just stood there, holding my glass like it might anchor me to the floor. I stared at her, trying to figure out when we had decided anything. When this conversation happened. How we'd supposedly agreed to announce it, here now like it was part of the entertainment. My throat went dry. Someone next to me leaned in and whispered, "Hey man, that's really mature of you guys." Couldn't even blink. Mature. Sure. Because standing beside your wife, no, not wife anymore apparently, while she announces your separation like a TED Talk is what maturity looks like. Marcy turned back to me then, briefly, her expression unreadable. She raised her glass toward me, eyes scanning my face. I raised mine too, because what else was I supposed to do? 'Cause a scene? Storm out? No. I smiled. I toasted. I drank. And inside something broke. Not loudly. Not with a scream. Just a clean, final snap. The kind that leaves no jagged edges. Just a quiet void where something used to be. After the toast, people came up to us. They said the usual things. "You're both so brave. I love how honest you're being. Relationships don't have to look like anyone else's. Right?" I nodded. Smiled. Thanked them. My mouth moved. But I wasn't there. I was somewhere else. Back on that rooftop, behind the column, watching my life get rewritten. Later, in the Uber home, she didn't say much. She scrolled her phone, replied to texts. I stared out the window, watching the city smear past like watercolor. When we pulled into the driveway, she finally spoke. "Thanks for coming tonight. That meant a lot." I didn't answer. I got out of the car, went inside, and headed straight to the bedroom. She followed a few minutes later, humming lightly like someone who just aced a presentation. And maybe she had. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling again, wondering what kind of person turns the end of a marriage into a press release. Marcy did. That's who she was now. Maybe who she always was. It wasn't the cheating that broke me. It wasn't the lying. It was the performance. The way she reframed the destruction as reinvention. The way she used we when really it had always been her decision. I'd just been dragged on stage for the final bow. And the worst part? They clapped. I didn't expect the knock. Came on a Wednesday afternoon. I was working from home, or at least pretending to. The apartment I'd rented after leaving the house still smelled faintly of fresh paint and old wood. One of those creaky second-story walk-ups above a bookstore. It felt temporary, like a waiting room for the next version of myself. The knock startled me. Sharp, quick. Not a delivery. Not a neighbor. When I opened the door, he was already looking at me. Mid-30s. Clean-cut with tired eyes. He wore a navy jacket, the kind people wear when they want to look put together but not formal. There was something restrained in his posture. Shoulders slightly hunched. Hands gripping a manila envelope like it held something radioactive. "Are you Mark?" I nodded slowly, already uneasy. "Yeah. Can I help you?" He took a breath. "My name's Trevor. I used to be with Marcy. A while ago." That name, Trevor, rang something faint in my memory. I'd heard it once, maybe twice. Brushed off quickly, like a piece of lint she didn't want me noticing. I opened the door a little wider. "Used to be with her how?" "I was engaged to her," he said quietly. Silence dropped between us like a hammer. I stepped aside. "Come in." He sat on the edge of the couch like he didn't want to get comfortable. His eyes scanned the apartment, probably noting the half-unpacked boxes, the untouched coffee mug beside my laptop, the stack of books I'd been using more for decoration than reading. I sat across from him, my mind already racing. He placed the manila envelope on the coffee table. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," he said. I think you deserve to know." "Know what?" Trevor opened the envelope and slid out a stack of documents. Photos, emails, messages printed in black and white. My hands didn't reach for them yet. I just stared. "She did the same thing to me," he said. I looked up. "She convinced me to co-sign a lease on a place she said we'd live in after the wedding," he continued. Told me we needed a clean start. I trusted her. Gave her access to my savings. She said it was temporary. Said I was the only one who ever really saw her. His voice broke a little on that line. It felt familiar. Too familiar. What happened? She changed, he said. Gradually at first. Started locking her phone. Staying late at work. Same old script. Then came the gaslighting. Telling me I was paranoid. Controlling. That I had abandonment issues. He shook his head. She accused me of stalking her when I asked questions. Threatened to call the cops if I didn't back off. Then one day I came home and half the apartment was empty. Furniture, her clothes, the TV, gone. She left a note saying she needed to find herself. I let out a breath. Jesus. She blocked my number. Changed her social media. I tried to talk to her once after that, just once. She told people I was unstable. Dangerous. Said I'd threatened her. No one believed me. I lost friends. My landlord evicted me after she stopped paying her share. I had to start over. He reached forward and slid one of the photos across the table. It was a picture of the two of them. Marcy looked younger, but not by much. Same eyes. Same smile she used when she was trying to win someone over. Her arms were around him. The background was a beach I recognized from a framed photo she used to keep on her dresser, only I had never been to that beach with her. Why now? I asked. Why come to me? He hesitated. Because it didn't sit right. When I heard she'd married again, I hoped she'd changed. But then a friend saw her on some work trip holding hands with another guy. Not her husband. Not you. I put it together. Did some digging? Found your name. Found your address. And I couldn't stay silent anymore. I stared down at the envelope. My fingers finally moved. I thumbed through the papers. Flight confirmations. Copies of text threads. An old wedding invitation, our wedding invitation, scribbled on the back were notes for a breakup speech. One sentence underlined in red. If he pushes back, bring up his anger. Always shifts the blame. The handwriting was hers. My stomach turned. There were early drafts of what looked like vows, half-written, messy. One caught my eye. My name wasn't on it. But Trevor's was. Crossed out in ink. My name had been written in above it. I felt like I'd been cast in someone else's role. Like I wasn't even the original choice. Just a substitution. A fill-in. She does this, Trevor said quietly. Cycles through people. Reinvents herself each time. She's a shapeshifter. Doesn't know how to stop. I didn't know what to say. My mouth was dry. My heart, oddly, was calm. Why did you stay with her so long? I finally asked. He looked at me, and for the first time there was no pity in his expression. Only recognition. Because I thought if I loved her enough, she'd stop needing someone else. That hit like a punch. Because it was the exact sentence I hadn't admitted to myself until right then. We sat in silence. The kind that only comes when two people realize they've lived versions of the same story. He stood to leave. I'm sorry, man. I really am. If I could go back and warn myself, I would. I walked him to the door. He paused before stepping out. You're not crazy, he said. Whatever she's telling you right now, just remember that. You're not crazy. Then he was gone. I stood at the door for a long time after he left. The envelope sat on the coffee table, thick with everything I didn't want to know but needed to see. She hadn't just lied. She had rehearsed this. Perfected it. I wasn't the victim of a failed marriage. I was just the next Mark. I couldn't sleep that night. The envelope sat on my kitchen table like it was glowing, calling me back to flip through it again, to stare at the same names and timelines that had shattered everything I thought I knew. But I didn't need to. The damage was done. I don't know what I was looking for the next morning when I opened the box of wedding keepsakes. Maybe proof that it wasn't all a lie. Maybe a moment of clarity. What I found was worse. In a stack of early vow drafts, her handwriting stood out. Neat, careful, dramatic in places. At the bottom of one page, in light pencil, a name, Trevor. His name. Faintly crossed out but still visible. Underneath it, you make me feel like home. My name, Mark, was scribbled in after, almost as an afterthought. I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't her home. I was her fallback. Her rewrite. Her safe bet after the first plan failed. I didn't cry. I just folded the page back into the box, slid it shut, and sat there in silence, trying to remember if any of our firsts had ever actually been mine. When I left, there was no fight. No suitcase on the porch. No shouting match over betrayal. I just packed my things. Quietly. Methodically. I found a place on the edge of town, above an old bookstore where the windows fog in the mornings and the floorboards creak like they're trying to talk back. No one asked why I was moving. No one needed to. She didn't notice I was gone until day 3. A text came through. Hey, do you know where the spare blender went? I replied, I'm gone. Don't look for me. She didn't respond. Now I drink coffee alone. I walk on familiar streets. I talk to strangers who don't know my story. It's not healing, not yet. But it's something. There's no need to perform anymore. No need to pretend. I'm not fixed. But I'm free. And for now, that's enough.